a struggling writer, Elias, stumbles upon an unopened love letter from decades past in a dusty bookstore. Addressed only to Eleanor, somewhere in the city, the letter speaks of unspoken love and a hopeful meeting beneath a clock tower. Consumed by curiosity, Elias embarks on an obsessive search to find Eleanor, uncovering fragments of a lost romance. After months of dead ends, he finally locates her, an elderly artist in a quiet coastal town. When he hands her the letter, her tearful reaction reveals that some love stories, even left unfinished, are never truly forgotten. Before you dive into this heartfelt story, please hit that like and subscribe button, because unique and emotional stories. I bring you deeply moving stories that explore human connections, emotions, and life's unexpected turns. Rain lashed against the windows of the dusty tome, a second-hand bookstore that felt less like a business and more like a comforting haven. Elias, a writer perpetually teetering on the edge of starvation and inspiration, sought refuge within its labyrinthine aisles. He was on the hunt for a muse, a spark, anything to ignite the dying embers of his creativity. He stumbled upon a stack of old bound letters tucked away in a forgotten corner. Their brittle paper crackled with age, their ink faded but legible. One in particular caught his eye, a vibrant blue envelope addressed simply to Eleanor, somewhere in the city. It was sealed, as if time itself had held its breath. Curiosity, the writer's most reliable vice, gnawed at him. He bought the letter for a pittance, his fingers trembling as he carefully broke the seal in his cramped apartment. Inside, a flowery script filled the page. "My dearest Eleanor," it began, "if these words ever reach you, know that they carry the weight of a heart brimming with unspoken truths. I have watched you, admired you, loved you from afar. I lack the courage to utter these feelings in person, but I can no longer remain silent. Meet me beneath the clock tower on Saturday at dusk. If you feel even a fraction of what I feel, I will be waiting. Forever yours, Arthur." Elias read it twice, a lump forming in his throat. It was a love letter, raw and vulnerable, a testament to a past where emotions were penned with trembling hands instead of typed on cold screens. He couldn't just leave it to gather dust, a testament to a love that might have been. He decided then and there to find Eleanor. His quest began with library archives and online searches. He sifted through marriage records, obituary notices, old city directories. Each search a tiny flame of hope, flickering in the face of overwhelming obstacles. He found dozens of Eleanors, each lead leading him down a different and ultimately dead-end street. Weeks turned into months. The search became an obsession, consuming his days and filling his nights with the ghostly whispers of Arthur and Eleanor's lost love. He neglected his writing. His apartment grew messier. His social life withered. His friends warned him, "It's just a letter, Elias. Let it go." But he couldn't. He felt an inexplicable connection to these strangers, a responsibility to mend a broken bridge of the past. He even started imagining their story, weaving tales of stolen glances and suppressed smiles, fueled by the romantic longing that haunted the unopened letter. Finally, a breakthrough. He stumbled upon an old newspaper clipping detailing a local artist named Eleanor Vance, known for her vibrant watercolors of the city. The clipping mentioned she'd moved away decades ago, after a devastating fire destroyed her studio. Elias tracked her down to a small coastal town, a place where the salty air seemed to carry whispers of forgotten dreams. He found her in a modest cottage, an elderly woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, painting seascapes bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. He hesitated, the letter clutched tightly in his hand. Should he intrude on her peace? He took a deep breath and approached her. "Excuse me, Mrs. Vance," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "My name is Elias. I found something I thought you might like to see." He showed her the letter. Eleanor's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth as she took the faded envelope. She carefully unfolded the paper, her lips trembling as she read the words. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Arthur," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "And after all these years..." Elias listened as Eleanor recounted her story. She had been deeply in love with Arthur, a quiet, unassuming bookkeeper who frequented her art studio. She had suspected his feelings, but the fire had shattered everything. Despondent and without her studio, she left the city, believing Arthur had moved on. "I waited for him, you know," she confessed, her voice cracking. "Beneath the clock tower, just as he asked, he never came." A pang of disappointment shot through Elias. The perfect romantic ending he'd imagined evaporated like morning mist. But why? Why didn't he come? Elias asked, his voice laced with confusion. Eleanor sighed, a heavy, mournful sound. "He did. He was there. He told me years later before he passed. He saw me waiting, but he saw the fire. He saw the look of despair on my face. He thought I was already leaving, heartbroken. He didn't want to add to my pain, so he walked away, believing he was doing the right thing." The truth struck Elias like a physical blow. Arthur hadn't lacked courage. He had acted out of a heartbreaking kind of love, a silent sacrifice born of misplaced assumptions. As Elias helped Eleanor frame the letter, she turned to him, her eyes glistening with tears. "Thank you, Elias. You've given me a piece of my past I thought was lost forever. But you know," she added with a wistful smile, "sometimes the stories we create in our minds are even more beautiful than the reality." Leaving Eleanor's cottage, Elias felt a profound shift within him. He hadn't found a perfectly resolved love story. He had found a messy, incomplete, and ultimately human one. Back in his apartment, the rain had stopped. He sat down at his desk, the familiar blank page staring back at him. But this time, the words flowed effortlessly. He didn't write about Eleanor and Arthur. He wrote about the courage it takes to love, the cruel irony of fate, and the power of unspoken words to shape our lives. He wrote about the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives we cling to, and the bittersweet beauty of accepting that sometimes happily ever after isn't always written the way we expect it to be. And then a twist. Elias received a call from the bookstore owner, a gruff old man named Mr. Abernathy. "Elias, you remember that letter you bought? Well, a box of old books arrived today. Belonged to Arthur Finch. The name on the letter, and inside was another letter, addressed to you." Elias rushed to the bookstore, his heart pounding. Mr. Abernathy handed him a small, aged envelope, his face etched with a knowing smile. Inside, written in the same elegant script as the letter to Eleanor, was a single short paragraph. To the one who found my words, thank you for caring, for believing in the power of love, even when it seems lost. Perhaps you, unlike me, will have the courage to write your own story, to chase your own Eleanor. Don't let the fear of failure silence your voice, for the greatest tragedy is not a love unrequited, but a story left untold. Elias sank into a chair, tears streaming down his face. Arthur hadn't just loved Eleanor. He had seen into the future, into the soul of a struggling writer, offering him the gift of courage, the permission to finally write his own story. No matter how messy or imperfect it might be, he had gone looking for a lost love, but he found something far more valuable, the courage to embrace his own. And that, he realized,